every practice in America should feel like they're run with the sophistication of a large health system, because you've taken the same technology, the same capabilities from, that we have deployed in AI at HCA and other places, and downscaled it to what it needs to look like and what can be adopted in a small practice.
We are super excited to have Hemant Taneja, who is one of the co-founders of Commure, the executive chair and the managing director and CEO of General Catalyst, our primary investor, on our Athellis Commure podcast today, talking about the latest and greatest in healthcare, in investment, in industry transformation, and really what it means to use technology in this day and age of a private practice. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
And we, of course, have our usual Hirsch Solanki, the Chief Business Officer, and who runs all things Athellis RCM within the Commure business. So maybe to kick things off, tell us a little bit about your story finding and discovering healthcare as this segment to transform, using venture capital, using technology. Why healthcare? You got in way before a lot of other VCs in the space. We'd love to hear that story.
Yeah, so... the entry into healthcare was one of complete serendipity. This was actually in 2005. I got a call from somebody at Partners Healthcare saying, "Hey, we have this thing called the electronic medical record." Mm-hmm. This was when I was in Boston back then, and we're trying to figure out what to do with this data. And my first question was, "What's the electronic medical record?" And so I actually hired a physician to help me read those and understand those. And it just felt like, wow, if we can really take advantage of data the right way, you could transform quality of care in healthcare. So that's how I got into it. Mm-hmm. So the first business we built doing that was what became a part of Optum Analytics eventually. Mm-hmm. And we got a lot of data from a lot of health systems. We built an analytics business for quality of care for hospitals, for pharma companies, for thinking about sort of drug design, things like that. So it was a data business. Sold it in 2011, 2012. I had already moved to the Valley. And I just sort of realized how poorly we had served, as a technology industry, served healthcare. Mm-hmm. And that's around when Glenn Tolman, who you know well from Transcarent and Livongo, he was retiring from Allscripts. We ended up starting Livongo together. And the hypothesis there was, can we create a company that culturally is at the intersection of technology and healthcare from the beginning? Mm-hmm. And maybe we'll build a business that truly does serve this industry in a productive way. That's where we tackled diabetes as the first app. And when you take the learnings from tech, you would say, who wants to think about their diabetes every day? So everybody was trying to create these apps where they would have 40. Well, let people to come in 40 times a day, enter what they did, what their glucose is. I'm like, that's a terrible experience. You want to disengage from your disease. So just bringing that technology mindset, think about consumer experiences. Well, let's go build a company. That took off. Mm-hmm. And the thing I was most proud of there was we built a net promoter score that was greater than Apple's in healthcare. Never happened before, right? Mm-hmm. People think healthcare services are terrible. So wow, so it can be done. And that's when I sort of midway through that journey from 2013 to 2020 when we sold it, I was convinced that we could build the right kinds of companies that solve problems in healthcare, help the entrepreneurs of healthcare be successful at what they are doing if we build with the right values. That's what Commure was born out of, right? And so we were marching down this path of team up with health systems, build the right software stacks to do all the things you do. Whether it's a big hospital or a small practice, your fundamental needs are the fundamental needs, right? It really is about the physician workflows, how you engage with patients, how do you do RCM, and so we thought a lot about, can we build an operating system that can power this? Mm-hmm. I think the journey from there, but frankly, COVID was a huge booster to that effort for us. Two reasons. One, it blew up the system. Mm-hmm. I think everywhere in the world was still struggling from it. And two, not too far after that, AI happened. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden we had the impetus to sort of solve the problem, the urgency. And then at the same time, you'll now have a technology leverage. And obviously, we combined Commure and Athellis, and you guys came on board to tackle that mission. I think it's gone very well. But that's sort of what my journey has been around. Let's truly use technology to serve the entrepreneurs in healthcare that are building those businesses so they can be effective.
And I think
Sorry for the rant.
no, it's because I think the founding of Commure is such an interesting story because it was taking some of the greatest engineers in the Valley and putting them in front of some of the hairiest problems in healthcare, partnered with these hospitals. And I think, we've obviously started with Jefferson, with HCA. We've been amazing partners now over years and years. But maybe the biggest step in that partnership is the recent work with Summa Health and the HACO initiative, which is quite literally becoming a health system and owning a hospital and transforming it in partnership with the leaders on the ground. What's the thesis there, and what sorts of technology do you want to see come out of that?
Yeah, so I think over the years, as we have gotten deeper into this journey of transforming healthcare, there's a few things that have stayed true. One is you can't transform healthcare without radical collaboration. So we have to be deep partners with our customers. And I used to joke when we started Commure, I was like, we're going to do this without actually having a real sales force. We're going to work with these systems, and actually they should feel like we are in the trenches with them and partnering. A lot of what you say about the forward deployed engineering model, that's the implementation of that mindset.
Yep.
The second thing is sort of a real belief that, no single product can really go transform healthcare. So you need like a suite of products that can go create that. And then we have gone over the last few years, partnered with about 24 or so health systems, about 15% of the US healthcare system, to say, hey, let's co-create these solutions. Let's work with you in the trenches to go do this transformation. And then we eventually decided if we're going to really accelerate this and get this done before I retire, because healthcare moves, it's like no shortage of problems to solve here. Not that I'm going to retire. I think for us to do that, we're like, let's go actually deeply partner with the community, acquire a health system. A lot of these are nonprofits. Acquire one that looks like most of America. So that's why we sort of picked an IDN that has all facets of how a health system in the country operates, and go deep in it. And obviously you guys are core to our whole strategy of deploying that with all the offerings that Commure has. I'm really excited about this. I think that will become the blueprint for how every small practice and every large health system is going to think about operating themselves.
So maybe in that sense, talking a little bit, one of the most exciting parts of my job, and I know Harsh's job, has been this opportunity to get on the ground with a small practice all the way up to the largest health system in the country, put engineers on the ground and actually solve problems that a physician is facing every day, whether that's part of the revenue cycle stack, whether that's part of the autonomous coding stack, whether that's part of the documentation stack. And for me, then being able to take those insights that we get in partnership with HCA and their entire hospitalist group with Dr. Schlosser, and turn that into a package and set of AI-powered tools that every practice in America can use, and almost take the insights of forward deployed engineering and turn them into this massively scaling business in a box product. You guys have seen that a lot in terms of businesses that take every aspect, or software products that take every aspect of a business, from the financial stack down to the workflow stack, and turn that into a simple and easy to use tool. What are some of those insights that you've learned?
Yeah, look, I think one of the things that's really a part about getting technology to work properly for healthcare is to recognize that the workforce is very idiosyncratic. Every physician in every small practice and big health system practices somewhat differently from the next. They all have the same sense of purpose. They get into this business because they really care about people. They want to make a difference. They do it slightly differently. So I think having a technological architecture that allows you to mimic their way of engaging with their patients, their customers, and giving them the sophistication to run that operation just like any successful company would, while they can maintain that idiosyncratic relationship with their client, that to me is success. And I think that has been done. Look, small practices, let's just focus on those for a second, right? They're just small businesses. You have many different segments of small businesses. And over the last 15 years, companies have been created that essentially go and take these segments and put together solutions that are end-to-end focused on you, Mr. or Miss Small Business Owner. Go focus on your customer and we'll run it for you. And it should just be a seamless experience that understands what your needs are, gives you visibility into the business, make sure you're compliant in whichever industry you're in, and give you that fundamental leverage. That has happened in so many. That's happened in restaurants. That's happened in horizontal use cases like payroll and payments. Look at Gusto and Stripe. Look at Toast in the restaurant business. Like every segment, you've gone and seen these get created. And I think the Atella suite of the overall Commure offering, that is what that is. I think it really is. Every practice in America should feel like they're run with the sophistication of a large health system.
Yeah.
Because you've taken the same technology, the same capabilities from that we have deployed it in AI at HCA and other places, and downscaled it to what it needs to look like and what can be adopted in a small practice. That's
100%. And I want to get Harsh's thoughts on this because you work a lot with one of our core partners, Stripe, who did that for, the first time I used Stripe as a developer. It felt like a magical experience. You were like, whoa, I can make money on the internet now. Like, I'm just going to put a credit card form everywhere. And you were involved in Stripe from the earliest days, from the very beginning. Maybe Harsh, first share a little bit about that magical moment for our customers in the mid-market, and how it really, you just open up a box of cash flow and tools all in this one tool set. And then I'd love to chat a little bit about the Stripe story too.
Yeah, I mean, Stripe is one of our best partners we have today. And reason being, when we collect payments for our practices, or we help them collect payments, we can do it point of sale when they walk in the door. And it's this magical experience where they get an estimate, and more often than not, that estimate is correct and it's accurate and people trust it. And so they're willing to pay up front, right? And it's really easy from their point of sale device all the way to when they leave the practice and they get their final bill. They get it via text that's embedded with the Stripe link, right? And so for the customer, it's seamless. Oftentimes they may not even know it's Stripe, but they just know it works every single time. And I think that's what's allowed, and I think the last number I saw was 85 or 90% of our practices are up on their patient responsibility with us because of this deep Stripe interface that we have.
And I would say is those rails are so important, because if you get the payment rails right and you can reduce, in Stripe's case, fraud, in our case, non-payments and denials, which are in some ways a proxy for fraud in healthcare, and effective, or almost like the inverse, you boost collections, you boost operating cash flow for businesses that are running at like 1% to 3% of collections. And so it's fascinating, because the payment rails are this insane, I think, vector into deploying other software within these businesses.
I used to joke, but essentially Stripe was doing was it was giving a new small business anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, the finance department of a Fortune 500 company, because you could actually go conduct commerce all over the world, right? I mean, that's what it was really doing for them. And there's a bit of an analogy to what you're talking about in your own business, because we're trying to be like, hey, run your practice with the sophistication that HCA has and being able to do, great cash management, great collections, because at the end of the day, the flow of money is the lifeblood of being able to run a business effectively, to be able to make the right investments, and the working capital is the most important lever that determines the success of small businesses. So I think solving that problem is foundational to being good partners to these customers.
It's interesting because to your point around the finance department of a Fortune 500, that's even more true today with LLMs and agents, in the sense that for us, let's say you had a backfill of hundreds of thousands of dollars of denials. Historically, you would need to raise a department of tens and, in some cases, hundreds of people, if it's millions of dollars of denials, to go solve that. Here, you can spin up a bunch of Athelos RCM agents, a bunch of tools that just work silently in the background, solve the denials, resubmit them with maybe a few humans in the loop. And I think that concept of operating leverage for a small business using LLMs and just giving them the back office of a Fortune 500 is what is so exciting here. Yeah. You've probably seen this a bunch in the segment, right?
Yeah, absolutely. One question I had for you is, why is it so important for doctors to be in private practice? Because I think that's the fundamental question, right? When most business owners, it's tough to start their own business. Of course, tools like ours make it easier, but they have a constant question of, do I go to the hospital or do I stay in small business, right? And there's such power to it.
Yeah, look, to me, there's a variety of reasons. One is, I think some doctors are entrepreneurial. They want to build that way. I think the other is, from a consumer perspective, hospitals sort of normalize the standard of care that it does end up going to some extent the lowest common denominator. And if you truly care about your patients, you want to give them a much better experience. But in order to do that, you then have to take on the task of running a business on top of delivering care. Yeah. And that's, I think, where the challenge is, and where the physicians with the greatest ambition, they do it, but they struggle. It's been hard for them. And if you see the consolidation that happens and end up sort of eventually throwing in the towel and becoming part of our systems, it's because they don't know how to cope with that tax. And I actually think the more successful you all are and others are in this industry, the more it'll be easier for physicians to run their private practices in an enduring way and actually be able to scale.
And I also think that one of the phenomena that we saw with the Shopify, for example, is when the tool set and the platform became better, you created more private practices. Now, it's not, or more effective, private businesses and small businesses. Now, that's not to say those people fully left the workforce. I mean, many of them still had jobs at large companies, but they were able to run a part of their business as a private practice. I think there's a world, and we're starting to see this, where you moonlight or spend your some days a week as an ED physician or as a hospitalist in a large health system, and then you're also able to start up an efficient, easy to run private practice or mid-market business with the new tools and LLMs that are now available on the market.
Yeah, I think the less the tax of running a business, the more you will see more physicians making that choice to say, let me go do this on my own.
Yeah. And that concept of work tax is something we talk a lot about, both internally within Commure and Athellis as a business, but then also for our customers. Where have you been most maybe surprised by the work tax that exists in healthcare?
Look, take two markets. Take e-commerce, we were talking about Stripe earlier, and you take healthcare. Mm-hmm. They're both about $4 to $5 trillion in the United States. Mm-hmm. E-commerce runs on 2% credit card rails. Mm-hmm. And healthcare payments runs on, what does it cost? It costs like
sometimes north of 10.
North of 10%. Of the overall healthcare spend. That tax, every health system, every practice, and our entire society could live without. So we can compress that.
Yep.
First of all, you create more operating leverage to take care of our communities better. So it's better for society. And I think the other thing is you can actually use that to realign your workforce. It's way more interesting in healthcare that we have people taking care of our elderly and our kids and patients that have been discharged than sitting there and trying to figure out how to play in the arbitrage of the payer provider billing dynamics, which is a lot of where this energy goes. Mm-hmm. Yep. And AI should be, if there's not a better use case for AI than that, because it actually frees up resources in society, frees up the workforce to do more interesting things, and makes this core service that we think everybody should have like way more affordable.
Mm-hmm. One thing that we saw, especially coming out of COVID, because you mentioned that blew up a lot of healthcare, is folks have just been getting burned out, right? Where they're spending X amount of time. Love to hear about that.
It's interesting you say that. So when ChatGPT happened, right, first of all, every CEO in every company, in every industry, in every country was, what do I do with AI, right? So we were thinking as an investment business, where should we deploy capital? Where is AI going to be adopted? And the conventional wisdom would have been that healthcare is going to be slow to adopt. It's people's lives, there's just going to be inertia.
Right.
Healthcare has been one of the fastest industries to adopt. And in fact, I mean, you guys know this, but you're doing the largest deployment that's happening in AI at HCA.
Yep.
That's literally the largest one in the country, and we're driving it. The reason is because the workforce is so burnt out, to your point, that they are willing to embrace it. They need it so badly. Yeah. They are willing to say, let's work together, solve these problems, and figure out how technology can be a leverage for us. And that's why a lot of your scribe work, how impactful that is. I mean, some of the emails you have shown me from, various health systems that are using these scribe tools, and the physicians, some of them are in tears on how much their life has changed and like how much pain they've been in because of the burden. So, I mean, I think AI impact in this industry is going to be radical over the next few years.
It is so interesting because it was a surprise to some extent at how quickly the adoption was, and also in some cases how bottoms up the adoption.
But I think this is why people are so burnt out.
It's the immediate dissonance of the heavy burnout post-COVID or during COVID to now suddenly, okay, there is actually now a tool that can take away a lot of the drudgery.
And I think on that point, the time to value is so quick, right? Where
so fast.
Your first note, you just see it, right? That I was spending 20 minutes on this, and now I'm spending 2 minutes on this.
Exactly. No, it's remarkable. It's actually why we started Commure, by the way. I used to go to these CEOs and boards of health systems saying, listen, we all know technology has ill-served this industry. And you have, at that time, there were 400 physicians committing suicide every year. That's 4 medical school classes a year because of burnout.
Wow.
This is 2017 when we were sort of launching the business. And I was like, we want to solve this problem.
Yeah.
We didn't quite know how, but lo and behold, the LLMs made that problem actually trivial. I mean, like how quickly, as you said, the ROI is manifesting itself. So it's good to see.
And I think whenever there's these technology transformations, there's also a really interesting opportunity to reimagine the software stack from the ground up.
Totally.
And for us, the very opinionated position we've taken on that is there's an opportunity to reimagine the EMR in ambulatory and outpatient settings from the ground up. Reduce clicks, obviously use ambient, but also use LLMs to almost intuit what the patient or what the provider wants to do to take care of the patient. Where else are you seeing this reimagining?
The biggest issue in healthcare, and as I said, one of the reasons we've not done a good job with technologies industry is because of point solutions.
Yeah.
So you create these siloed solutions for individual workflows, and you force those up and down the size of the customers, all the way from individual practices to systems.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that creates a lot of tax and burden on the workforce.
Yeah.
And the reality is, if you try to imagine what's happening, it's this interaction between patients, clinical teams, and administrators. And in small practices, more often than not, the administrators and the clinicians are the same.
Yeah.
And so rather than throwing them from one application to the next that doesn't talk to each other and creating all that burden, if you can reimagine that interaction model, use AI to streamline it as much as possible, and make it be sort of seamless to how people are getting care, or people are delivering care, or people are billing care, it is the opportunity to reimagine. I think that's what you guys have done. I think that's this Atella's sort of in a box concept of all these things, whether it's scribing and RCM and patient engagement. That's why it's essential, because I think we have now tried to use technology to mimic how work actually gets done, versus forcing people into silos of workflows the way this industry developed over the last 20 years.
One thing I want to hear about, because I think that's interesting, there's a lot of folks in the market that will have point solutions, or they'll come out with a series of point solutions that are bundled together. I think in the short run, you probably can't actually tell the difference, right? Because there'll be one scribe versus another. I think it actually
Scribe is the ultimate example of that, right? I think maybe that's where you're going, or
I think the question there is, as you think about that compounding over the long run, why is it so important to have one technology partner,
one data model,
or one data model versus having a series of bolt-ons over the next 5 years or 10 years?
Well, think about it. If you have 3 different AI agents, for lack of a better word, in a practice, one's doing the scribing work from some vendor, one's doing patient engagement, and then one's doing sort of billing. The knowledge is not compounding. The understanding in the clinician's mind is not compounding. The understanding of the patient isn't really compounding. So I just think these things have to work as a single system, single data model, single AI. I mean, but this is not a unique to healthcare comment. So we're actually replatforming our own business right now. And I'm forcing us to just put everything into a central data model. And there should be an agent that mimics the different parts of the work that we all do as a team that's working in a single AI system. It has to be a single system. And so otherwise, by fragmenting AI into point solutions, that you're doing no better than what you were done in the past. This is the reality of it. So.
Maybe to wrap things up, and just would love to hear your thoughts on the next 10, 20 years of clinical practice, and what, if we all do our jobs here well, if we do them at Sumo, we do them at HCA, with all the private practices and physician-owned practices that we work with, what does that world of care look like? What is the $4 trillion economy? Does it shrink? Does it grow? Does it, does the sharing ratio change? Curious to hear what happens. Look,
I think if you had a blank sheet of paper and you could say, close your eyes, 20 years from now, what should it look like? You would say the acute systems are very much focused on, actual procedures where you need to go into a place, you need to be taken care of for an extended period. Primary care gets unbundled. Urgent care is already getting unbundled. So I think you sort of start to think about, you have these entrepreneurial practices that do a lot of these things. And that are actually focused on truly understanding their client base, their patients, and keeping them healthier, so that they're not going into whatever the modern hospital is going to be. Because I think that's success. Success to me is you go from heads in beds to your acute care hospitals are actually empty, and they thrive because of a different business model, which is a lot of what value-based care is about, right? And so you have to bring care to the edge. And to bring care to the edge, you need to have a proliferation of an entrepreneurial ecosystem of these practices that take care of people where they are, using technology, focus on preemptive care.
Yep.
That to me is the future, and I think it's going to require thinking about technology that also decentralizes while maintaining the intelligence with AI. So, I mean, I'm a big believer that it's going to happen.
Yep.
Next decade. So.
And maybe one last thing, what do we caution against? What do we think about over the next 5 years? Where can things really go wrong?
Look, I think, first of all, I do believe you have to deploy AI with a sense of responsibility. I mean, it's great that the industry is embracing it, but it is people's lives on the other side. So I think being very thoughtful about that is important. I think the getting revenue cycle right, because again, if capital is a lifeblood, then we need to make sure mistakes can't happen. The stakes are high, just the nature of how these businesses work. So I think the sense of urgency around all these use cases has to be really high. And then I would say, we have to figure out how to, on one side, get these systems to become more efficient, which is creating consolidation in this industry. But at the same time, we have to move care to the edge. So they're trying to scale and what I used to call sort of unscale at the same time. So there's this like architectural shift in the taxonomy of care and the way the services get provided. I think we have to sort of carefully do that in the way that the underlying businesses, practices, and systems remain vibrant. A lot of our work is about, can we just turn these into better businesses? Because if they're resilient, then they'll be able to invest in creating the transformation that we're talking about.
Great. Well, HT, we really appreciate the time and all of the partnership, and we're excited for the 5, 10, 15 years to come as we transform healthcare together.
That was fun. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.